Good evening, everyone. I'm Alan Fisher. Many Arizonans are embracing alternative medicine. On this episode of AZ Illustrated Science, we'll explore why complementary and alternative therapies are gaining in popularity but are still not covered by insurance. Also, we'll talk about horsepower and healing and a program that is opening doors for wounded warriors. But first, here's a look at today's top stories.
Republican congressional leaders say immigration reform is dead for 2013. According to TalkingPointsMemo.com, House Majority Whip Kevin McCarthy of California says there simply is not enough time left in the year to get the legislation through Congress. A bill passed the Senate this summer with bipartisan support, but progress was elusive in the House. Today was a busy day in Arizona politics. Secretary of State Ken Bennett announced his run for governor as a Republican. Meanwhile, Shelley Keiss formed an exploratory committee for the GOP nomination in Congressional District 2. She joins fellow Republicans Ed Martin and Martha McSally, all of whom hope to challenge Democratic incumbent Ron Barber. And that's a look at tonight's headlines.
Yesterday's Veterans Day celebrations honored the many men and women who have served in the armed forces. Today we talk about what happens when a soldier becomes ill or is severely wounded while on duty. Joining me in the studio are two guests, Michael Dow, the Southern Arizona advocate for the Army Wounded Warrior Program, or AW2, and a medically retired soldier, Reno Roethle. Gentlemen, thanks so much for joining us today.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Reno, please tell us a little bit about your injury.
Well, I was injured in Baghdad in 2007 while serving as a airborne cavalry scout with the 82nd Airborne. We were outside the Sadr City province of Baghdad, Iraq. I was driving a lead vehicle in a 4-truck presence patrol when I was struck by an IED that exploded under the roadside to the left of the vehicle, and the vehicle was penetrated with shrapnel, and I got hit in the side of the face with part of it, and it broke out a piece of my jawbone and lacerated my cheek, and you can see the scars from that.
And Reno, what sort of challenges have resulted as a result of this injury that you suffered?
I suffer from PTSD, and it makes life difficult sometimes dealing with tense situations. Through VA and Army Wounded Warrior Program, or Army Wounded Warrior advocates have helped me with a lot of my daily challenges, such as getting all the benefits that I'm entitled to, and things like that.
Okay. And Michael, tell us please a little bit about the AW2 program.
The Army Wounded Warrior Program is the Army's official program to support and assist its most severely wounded, ill, and injured soldiers transition back into civilian life. There's approximately 200 advocates all over the country, and caseloads range from 40 soldiers to 100 soldiers. It's different, but there's about 100 wounded warriors here in southern Arizona.
And Michael, what sort of criteria must be met to qualify for the AW2 program?
You must be medically retired and have a disability rating at least 30% in certain categories, or a combined 50% of combat injuries. And there is a special form that the Army issues that we have to use for eligibility.
And how would someone become involved in this? For example, someone that comes back from service, how would they know about this?
You can, if someone's watching right now that would think they're eligible, they can Google search Army Wounded Warrior Program, and there's an 800 number they can call to start the process to get integrated into the program.
Okay. And Reno, specifically, what were some of the benefits or some of the assistances that you got from the program itself?
Well, dealing with a lot of the paperwork and I guess the, that technical side of things, it really helps to have these guys there to, walk me through the process of applying for benefits step by step. And also, there's a lot of programs that they can hook you up with for, all kinds of different assistance with, you need rent, you having trouble paying rent some months, they can help you with that. And, schools you want to attend, or they can even help you with applying for jobs and resumes, and just all kinds of stuff like that.
Okay. And Michael, we have about 45 seconds left. Can you tell me a little bit about some of the other groups that AW2 works with to help returning soldiers?
Sure. There was an incident that Reno went through over the summer where he had to withdraw from his classes, and he withdrew past the deadline, so he had to pay back that tuition. It's just a rule with the GI Bill. So a VA social worker worked with him in the Debt Management Center to not take all of his disability pay and to get on a repayment plan. Then we worked with Project Action for Veterans with Primavera Foundation that paid for the rent that month because his disability pay was taken. Army Emergency Relief Fund came in to provide utility assistance. Disabled Veterans Outreach Program helped connect Reno with a wind turbine technician class that he just completed using his GI Bill out in California. And another nonprofit, Rebuilding America's Warriors in Phoenix, completed the final plastic surgery for his lip. So there's a lot of benefits out there, and I'm just thankful to be a part of this program to help him.
All right. Well, Michael and Reno, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Aid is urgently needed in the typhoon-ravaged Philippines amid rising despair over the slow pace of relief.
Another of our stories highlighting setbacks and successes of the Affordable Care Act. Tonight, one woman who is losing her current insurance.
No one told me, purchase at your own risk because this policy does not comply with the ACA and it may be canceled.
And we sit down with former Vice President Dick Cheney. His new memoir details his decades-long battle with heart disease.
I was able to live with chronic heart disease for 35 years and still lead a very active, very normal, some people say abnormal career, but able to function at a high level in spite of the disease.
Those are just some of the stories we're covering on tonight's PBS NewsHour.
Steve Davis is ready for his day in court to explain why he blames gangster James Whitey Bulger for his sister's murder.
30-something years of a heart full of anger, and it's hard. He carved out a hole that we're all trying to patch up.
A mob boss faces sentencing for decades of crime. On the next Morning Edition from NPR News.
Acupuncture, massage, reflexology. Such therapies have existed for centuries. And despite their use in other countries and their growing popularity in the United States, many are not officially recognized here, which means they may not be widely accepted by the medical community or covered by insurance. Producer Georgia Davis explains.
All right, so what do you want to work on today?
Tucson Acupuncture Co-op founder Josh Whiteley has more than 3,000 hours of training in alternative medicine, including acupuncture, Chinese herbs, and dietary therapy.
The most common thing people tend to come here for is back pain, neck pain, shoulder pain. We do also treat quite a bit of stress, anxiety, insomnia, gastrointestinal disturbances. A lot of these mysterious symptoms that sometimes our doctors will have a tough time diagnosing, we can actually treat quite well with acupuncture and Chinese medicine.
Based upon evidence gathered in randomized controlled trials, insurance companies like Aetna will cover acupuncture for conditions such as chronic back pain, migraine, or chemotherapy-induced nausea. For other conditions, however, acupuncture is considered experimental and therefore not covered by insurance. Such is the case for many alternative and complementary therapies.
CAM, complementary and alternative medicine, that is all of the non-conventional stuff. So it would be herbal supplements, it would be mind and body practices such as massage and acupuncture and chiropractic and yoga and Tai Chi and Ayurvedic medicine, and all of those kinds of things get counted in CAM.
1 out of every 3 Americans uses some form of complementary or alternative medicine, spending tens of billions of dollars each year. So CAM is helping 33% of Americans manage their symptoms. But it is still considered largely experimental because treatments typically have to make it through expensive research trials.
We're sort of dismissing systems of medicine that have hundreds of years of evidence, just not the kinds of evidence that we require in our country.
Kim Kelly is finishing a PhD in medical anthropology. Before returning to the classroom, she spent 7 years working for an NGO, studying vaccines and devices for diseases in the developing world.
Somebody wants to study a drug, they have to basically prove that it works in an animal model. And, depending on what that drug is, what the FDA has decided what type of animal model they need to show that it works in, you'll get that data, and then if it looks strong enough to go into human clinical trials, then you have your first phase 1 human clinical trial.
The first phase starts out small, with about 20 to 30 people.
Then if that looks good, you put it into a phase 2 clinical trial, and it's a larger N, but you're studying sort of the same thing, but not necessarily toxicity as you are in phase 1. You're starting to look at mechanism of action, efficacy.
Phase 3 usually includes thousands of people.
For a vaccine, it might be 3,000, 5,000 people. If it's a prevention study, it might be in the tens of thousands of people. That's really where you're trying to see, does this drug work in a large number of people?
If a drug or device or therapy makes it through the research trial phase, it gets approval from the Federal Food and Drug Administration and is then generally covered by insurance. This is the process of evidence-based medicine. In other words, building evidence that something works before it is approved for use. While a drug or device or surgery is meant to address a specific problem, CAM works on the whole body.
We're essentially using what they call differential diagnosis patterns. And so each person will be a little bit different. So you may get 2 people with a headache, but each headache is going to be treated a little bit differently.
And that kind of complex, holistic, and individualized therapy does not fit well within large, standardized clinical or research studies. Not to mention, because much of the population is already using CAM, it becomes difficult to do what is called a blind study.
If you try to do a study of massage, for example, it's hard to find people who have never had a massage. Whereas you could find someone who had never used this weird drug, but you can't find someone who hasn't used a massage. So to even study the massage, you're not dealing with naive people.
Conventional medicine, sometimes called Western or allopathic medicine, and CAM can speak to one another, says Ritenbaugh, who is one of many researchers at the University of Arizona finding ways to study CAM and build evidence of its efficacy.
Using a different tradition's lens on the body, seeing it differently, are there things we can learn about how our bodies work that we wouldn't have otherwise discovered, just proceeding in the normal way through Western medicine?
And she says there is a silver lining, because when the FDA and insurance companies are not involved, patients have more flexibility and choice.
You can try it and not like it. One treatment, you're like, I hate needles. So don't do it again,
And by shopping around and trying different therapies, you can find the best fit for your lifestyle, belief system, body, and pocketbook.
Tomorrow night, we hear more from Cheryl Ritenbaugh on the role politicians are playing in making CAM more mainstream. Whether you're a skeptic or a believer, chances are you've heard about energy healing and wondered what it's all about. A recent Tucson conference, the 2nd annual Science, Spirit, and Health Symposium, brought together healers and leading researchers to tackle this question. Here to tell us what they found are energy healing practitioner Melinda Connor and symposium organizer Dan Horner. Melinda and Dan, thanks so much for joining us today.
Thanks for having us.
My pleasure.
Melinda, what is energy healing?
Energy healing is best explained as manipulation of the charged field, the biofield, around the body. So a practitioner or a device somehow affects what the field that is produced and extends past the surface of the body is doing.
And what kind of practices are included in energy healing?
Well, all sorts of things. For a long time, things that are now much more mainstream, like chiropractic and acupuncture, were considered energy healing because they're moving the electrical system of the body, where Western medicine focuses primarily on the chemical system of the body. Things like laying on of hands healing, things like music, things like craniosacral work, things like massage therapy, things like breath work, all are involved in manipulating the field that extends past the surface of the body.
Dan, how widespread is the use of energy healing these days?
Actually, Alan, it's kind of like one of the best kept secrets out there. There's just some numbers. $7.8 billion was spent out of pocket, outside of the HMO system, with discretionary income on energy medicine in the past few years, every single year. There's probably 25 to 45,000 full-time energy healing practitioners in this country, and these are folks that are making their full-time living seeing clients. In addition to that, on PubMed, which is the National Science Foundation's database for medical studies, there's over 400 studies on energy medicine. And so really it's kind of like this quiet revolution that's going on. It's being added to hospitals, at the University Medical Center. They're using Reiki, for instance, for people that have gotten through cancer and part of their healing process. It's being used, healing touch has been, I've heard it's been being used for veterans coming back from the war, and a lot of allopathic doctors are adding energy work to their actual allopathic practices. So it's kind of coming out, and what we wanted to do with the conference was take energy medicine out of the closet and into the mainstream, because it's something a lot of people don't know about, but it's happening like in this kind of quiet revolution fashion.
And Dan, how did the conference go?
Man, it was fantastic, Alan. It was great. I want to thank Dr. Melinda Connor, who just nailed it out of the park with her talk about how music heals the brain. Dr. Gary Schwartz was there from the University of Arizona, Dr. Ann Baldwin from the Center for Integrative Medicine, Dr. William Tiller. It was phenomenal. We had over 200 people there, and also Dr. Bruce Lipton's film keynote speech that he gave at an ICM conference a couple years ago. It was just phenomenal. The energy in the room was great. The presenters were fantastic. People came away with, I think, just a shift in worldview. It was really wonderful.
And Melinda, conventional or Western medicine uses clinical trials to prove its effectiveness. How is the effectiveness of energy healing scientifically proven?
We actually are about to take to the International Research Conference on Integrative Medicine a test suite that we've developed, that we've actually done a controlled trial on. Over 200 people participated in the trial. And we now have a 15-point test suite for energy practitioners that are involved in the laying on of hands process, and can demonstrate whether a practitioner is real or not through that process. So we're moving to the point that we can say we understand at least something now. We have a nodding acquaintance with how the process works.
And what sort of illnesses or maladies can energy healing help?
Boy, that's a tough question because it's so broad. It's going to be individual specific and practitioner specific. It's always a team effort. And we prefer, if possible, to have a physician involved in the process so that it's an integrative team process. And pretty much anything that's out there, diabetes, heart disease, intestinal issues, multiple sclerosis, paraplegia, all sorts of things can be supported. You develop the practitioner team and you work together and set goals and objectives on what needs to be developed, and then work toward those goals and objectives. So There are lots of different ways to approach the integrative process. You can do it through nutrition, you can do it through breath work, you can do it through exercise, you can do it through meditation, you can do it through the laying on of hands healing work. So there are a number of different ways that you can bring things and integrate them together.
And we're talking about healing energy. What type of energy or energies are we actually addressing here in the human body?
With our testing, we've demonstrated that biophoton output changes, that the extra low frequency magnetic field wave oscillates differently, that the RF field strength that oscillates differently, gamma and X-ray emissions change from the body, gas emissions change from the body when a session is going on. They can have things like EEG entrainment. The practitioner's brainwaves and the client's brainwaves sync up so that perhaps the individual who's the client is very, very stressed and the practitioner is very clear and very focused, perhaps practices meditation on a regular basis. They're able to help support the client in the movement toward deeper relaxation and greater comfort and balance.
Well, Melinda, Dan, I want to thank you both very much for joining us today.
Sure. Thank you, Alan. Thanks for having us.
It's a pleasure.
Some Southern Arizonans are going farther afield to find alternative therapies for managing physical disabilities and mental and emotional challenges. Producer Mitchell Riley shares this story about relationships, healing, and horsepower.
All parents want to have a bond and a connection with their child. You're never quite sure of how that's going to go when you're first told your child is on the autism spectrum. So in the back of your mind, you're like, am I ever going to be able to connect to my son? What type of relationship will we have? You get concerned that that's something that I may not ever have with them.
Jason Ring is an officer in the United States Air Force, stationed at Davis-Monthan in Tucson. His 6-year-old son, Alec, was identified with a pervasive developmental delay when he was 15 months old. When he entered kindergarten at age 3, he was diagnosed with autism.
On the one hand, it was fear. It was scared of the unknown, of a lot of the assumptions that you have in not knowing, and preconceived ideas.
Jason found services for Alec through a special needs program at Davis-Monthan Air Force Base. Among the offerings was a program called Therapeutic Riding of Tucson, or TROT. Since 1974, TROT has used horseback riding as a form of therapy for children and adults who are challenged by everything from blindness to PTSD.
Who's this?
Alec qualified for a scholarship and was enrolled in the program just over a year ago.
Think you want to ride today?
The first few lessons, Alec was terrified. Yeah, I think his first lesson, he spent the first few minutes just in tears walking around on the horse.
Okay, let's walk over to your horse.
Our goal shifted then to let's just get comfortable on the horse. So we spent weeks just learning how to relax and be confident on the horse and get to know your horse.
Show you to walk on?
Walk on.
Good job.
Melanie Raider is Alec's riding instructor and began riding horses herself when she was 9 years old. She describes herself as a horse-crazy kid whose passion for riding never waned.
Yes, for the green cones we use our reins this year. Good job.
I think it's important to point out that therapeutic riding instructors are not therapists. So the therapeutic is it's a little misleading in that a lot of times people think that we're therapists. But we are riding instructors. And our goal is to teach riding to students to whatever degree they can learn.
Yeah, there you go. And now this one straight back. Hey, that's much better.
So we are asking riders to hold the reins and learn how to halt their horse and learn how to turn and make them go forward and post the trot.
Yeah, nice clucking and keep clucking.
But along with that, there's a lot of other benefits, physical benefits, emotional, cognitive, social. And so we concentrate on certain goals within those benefits.
Wow, me too, me too.
Melanie says it's common to work in partnership with families to shape the goals and expectations of each rider. Jason shared with Melanie that he wanted to help Alec communicate better and to focus her efforts primarily on his social, emotional, and cognitive skills.
So we're just going to do 3.
Okay.
He says his son lacked confidence and the ability to connect with his peers, and that even his own connection with Alec was lacking.
All right, should we go do a throwing game at the tires?
There were times when Alec would say something and I would look at Jason and we'd both just kind of, have no idea. And so yeah, you lose something there between father and son if you can't understand what your child is saying. 20 points?
Yes.
The little one, yeah.
Melanie taught Alec how to interpret horse language by observing the ears, the mouth, the tongue, and the tail. He learned riding positions and patterns. The exercises improved his core strength and balance. He became more adept with his hand-eye coordination, and his memory sharpened. Alec began to trust his horse, and through that relationship and instruction from Melanie, a significant bond grew.
I can't see.
You can't see where you're going. We have to trust Vicky that she's going to lead us in the right direction. For a lot of students, and particularly a lot of students with autism who have trouble relating to people, they have a very strong connection with the horse. And the horse, just being on the horse and being around the horse, enables them to open up in a way that they can't with people.
Alec has opened up over the past year and reached many of the goals his father hoped for.
I want to touch yellow, blue, and light blue.
You're going to touch all of the colors.
Yes, because I love them.
Oh my goodness, talking all the time, and it's like music to my ears. He just can't stop talking sometimes, which is a beautiful thing, but being able to hold a conversation, not only at home, but also with others, being able to identify like the basic things like colors, being more self-sufficient.
So lean forward.
So it's like a transformation from a year ago.
And we go downhill. Now you can lean.
He's much more lucid in his conversations.
Very nice.
Instead of having a stream of consciousness conversation basically with himself, he's able to respond to either me or the volunteers that work with him and stay within our conversation.
Which was the last one we did that.
Alec has learned the patterns and the protocols, but he's also developed a strong sense of himself and is now willing to push beyond his own boundaries.
I'll show you.
Okay.
I love teaching Alec. He's my last lesson on my last day of work, and I can't imagine a better lesson to end my week with because he's always made me laugh, and I'm always smiling just as big as he is when we're done with the lesson. So he's really, really fun.
You must be power!
Jason Ring says he's grateful for the good work of Melanie Raider and the other folks at TROT, who have helped Alec develop skills and abilities that were once beyond his reach.
Do you see all the horses in the pastures?
Yes.
What color are the horses?
White.
One is white.
One is gray.
One is grayish.
And one has two in black and white.
To see how far he's come and to be able to have that connection, the communication back and forth of him expressing himself and then being able to communicate back to him and him understand and receive it is just, you can't put words to it. Every day is wonderful, every moment's wonderful.
That's our show. To post a comment on any of these stories or to keep up with the latest news, go online to our website at azpm.org. I'm Alan Fisher. Thanks for watching.